The truth is that what we do is even more important than what we say. This is also true as it relates to our smartphones and how we are using them.
Yes. Dr. Craig Abrams is a psychotherapist, and he counsels kids, adolescents, adults, and families. They all need the work, right? Recently, he wrote an article in Metro Parent magazine. It's a guideline for parents on how to limit smartphone use and for them and their kids, because here's the bottom line. There are some big benefits in being unplugged. And I experienced that this last weekend when I went camping and I had no service for 4 days and it felt freeing. Right, doctor?
About being unplugged?
Yeah.
Well, it's very important. You know, it's when we're not stimulated all the time by things that are structured for us, it's when we have a chance to daydream, we get more creative, we have new ideas, and we interact more.
Yeah, we can pay attention to the person who's right in front of us. And a lot of times it's our kids. And the other day I was talking to just yesterday, I was talking to my daughter and she was in the middle of talking and explaining something to me. I picked up my phone and I sent a quick text out because it was something that was happening later, so I thought it was important. She's like, Mom, I was trying to explain something to you. You told me to put my phone down, and now you just did it. I was like, oh my gosh, we have a guest on the show tomorrow who's going to talk about this. I'm so sorry. And so I think just being conscious of it is a good way to start. Well, let's touch base on this, because unfortunately, kids learn what we show them, what we model. Because I want to say to my kids, do as I say, not as I do. But the reality is, if we're smoking, our kids are likely to try it, right?
That's
if we're texting and driving, they're going to think it's okay to do it. You say this, we shouldn't teach honesty, but then not tell the clerk that we were undercharged. We need to be wearing bike helmets if we expect them to.
That's right. If we're going to do otherwise, how are they going to learn it, right? If I hold a cigarette, which I don't, but if I were to hold a cigarette and tell my child smoking's bad for you, the real lesson that they get is smoking's okay despite the fact that Dad says not to smoke. Or honesty, including with telephones and other ways, right? It used to be in the days of corded phones in the homes, right? The phone would ring, and if the parent didn't want to talk, they might say to the child, tell them I'm not home. Oh. Right? But that's not honest.
Yeah.
I am home.
My mom could not lie. She would do that, though, and she'd say, no, I'm not here. That's what she would say on the phone. No, I'm not here. They knew she was there. She knew it was her.
Yeah.
Nobody catches that one? Okay.
So you handle it.
No, I had a process. I'm having a bad day. All right? It took me a little extra time.
I learned, though, in that instant that my mom cannot lie. And she's not good at lying, and she won't do it anymore because she's not good. And I think that's true. Like, if you don't want them to start lying yourself, make sure that they don't hear it and that you call them out on it too.
Right. And so too with telephones, cell phones, and with texting, right? So we tell everyone and we read that texting with the telephone, texting while driving is so dangerous.
Yeah.
I understand the rates are up there with like drunk driving, the rates of accidents. So if I were to text and then I want my children to grow up and get driver's licenses and not text, they've learned the wrong lesson. They saw me text.
I've got to ask you, though, because you just got a smartphone like 6 months ago. Is that correct?
That's
what
true.
you wrote you called yourself out in a blog.
Yes.
I think there's a benefit to part of what you're saying in that, because you haven't been so addicted to a cell phone like many of us have been for years and years and years, and you've probably seen more clearly how it's changed people around you, even adults.
Well, and the smartphone specifically, how it changed me. I had a regular flip phone prior to that. I was sort of behind the curve, and I got to the cell phone way after everyone else. And I used to sort of almost mock, why do we need those? They're not interesting. Who needs it? Then I got one, right? And then I started to see how it pulls you in. All the interesting apps and the instant access to news and entertainment and social communication. And all of a sudden, I found myself with my face buried in my screen more and more and more, despite preaching otherwise to others. And then my children started sort of calling me on that. Dad, I was talking to you. And first I sort of wrote that off a bit. Oh, it's kid stuff. Then I had to start to listen because it happened more often. And so I'd put it down, I'd make eye contact, and it really changed things. I learned how easy it is to get pulled into that.
You got to turn off the volume sometimes is what I've learned. What about what you've learned in your waiting room as it relates to smartphones and seeing patients using them?
Well, it had been in years past. I go to my waiting room and I'd find exactly what you want to find. Parents and children talking, a parent reading a book to a child, cuddling, interacting. And this is so important, right? Research shows us that the more words a child hears over the years from adults, the more they learn. It has a lot to do with development. So that was wonderful when they'd be interacting and reading. Now I go to my waiting room and I see very little of that. Primarily, I see the parents and the children, each in their own device, not interacting with each other.
Yeah.
Well, that's sad.
What are some of the benefits to not looking at screens? Are there physical benefits, emotional clearly, social clearly?
There's lots of research that shows that we need that with increased use of screen time, there's more obesity and there's all kinds of both emotional and physical. And so when you put it down, then the opposite is so, right? When we put down the screens, we're more likely to exercise and talk to people we're with, interact with our kids. You know, sometimes I'll see someone walking their child in a stroller down the street while they have a phone to their head.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure they're thinking, and I understand, there's no problem, because it sort of seems like there isn't. But if you think about it, when the phone is not on, you're much more likely to chat with that child in the stroller. And even before our children are able to really respond verbally, they're learning a lot from our chatting with them.
Well, and even car rides. I think now parents will just turn on a movie. They're not even going long distances. I can see, you know, let them watch a movie if you're going for an 8-hour. We used to go 12 hours in the car to my grandparents' house. And a lot of people just turn on a movie in the car. And sometimes, you know, kids will say, I'm bored, there's nothing to do. And it's like, look out the window.
I Spy.
Right? I Spy. There are a lot of games that people can play in the car and a lot of things that kids can learn by looking out the window, reading signs, understanding distance, all those kinds of things.
Many things. And also, something you said before I came on with you, you mentioned something about the benefits of boredom, that there's something good about boredom. It's also okay to be bored now and then in the car.
Why is it okay to be bored?
Sorry, more than okay, right? Boredom gives us a chance to learn things like, we get more creative and we learn things like self-soothing. And I see more and more people who don't really have a sense of how to calm themselves. They only know how to push the buttons and interact with the screen.
Yeah.
Or kids
Be
who
stimulated.
can't put themselves to sleep at night.
Right. They want their parents to be with them longer and longer, and that's always happened, right? Read me another story. But now I see kids who will. They'll be texting into the late hours, right, 2, 3 in the morning, literally. Or some kids I'll hear talk to me about they intentionally set an alarm and get up early so they can play some games on their phones or on their systems at home. And I'm sure you know about the benefits of sleep. It's crucial for learning and developing.
We're out of time, but you've got these guidelines for use of phone. Can you rattle them off super quickly?
To the degree that I can remember them. But
during meals?
I wouldn't have them at mealtime. We can interact. I wouldn't have them in the car, dangerous, and we can be interacting. Don't have them in the bedroom for reasons like I just said, avoiding the video games and such. Put them away during homework. We need to be able, uninterrupted time is required for thorough, more deep thinking.
The strollers you mentioned.
Yes.
And keeping devices off the first part of the morning.
I wouldn't have them on in the morning for things I was just saying. Kids need to not, they don't want to get up early. They can use that time to be getting ready or to have calm time before school.
About the day ahead. Yeah, or sleeping.
Well, either, right?
Yeah.
We need to get our sleep and to calmly get ready for the day ahead.
This is important information, and I'll say it's as important for me as it is for my kids. And it has to start with me.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the important message for all of us. Let's turn off our phones a little bit.
MetroParentMagazine.com is where you can read the article as well.
Awesome tips there.
By Dr. Craig Abrams. Thanks so much for being here.
We should do this segment every day, probably, right?
Good reminders. Pound it in.
Great to meet you. Thank you so much for your time.